Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlinson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. This is the first episode of Focus on Why podcast, and I cannot describe how excited I am. I'm just literally going to explode because it's here, it's happening, and it's just the most exciting thing. And I really wanted to explain about what this podcast is all about, why I'm talking about this, and why I've started to bring people together from all over the world. And there are so many ways that I could deliver that and share that story with you. But we're not going to do it the way that I was expecting, because somebody very special suggested an alternative way of delivering this first episode, and I thought it was a brilliant concept. So here we go. Let's do this.
Hi, Amy. Hi, everyone. I'm Atuksha, and I'm from Simple Crowdfunding. So to give you a little bit of background as to how this has come about, we are absolutely turning the tables on this. And actually, the interview is not about me at all. It's about Amy, because she has such a special message to share that I think it would have been a real shame for Amy to talk about it by herself. And so having had the conversation with Amy, we thought it was a really good idea. And for this particular episode, I'll be interviewing Amy, so at least you can understand why this has come about and why it is so important. So before we go into some questions, though, I just want to share my thoughts in terms of what I know and understand about Amy. I met Amy a few years ago, and actually straight off the bat, I felt this warmth and this openness, which was just absolutely wonderful to see. If there were 5 words, and I've been thinking quite a lot about this, if there were 5 words that I would use to describe Amy, they are consistent, kind, determined, humble and thorough. And we're going to be covering off each of those. There are many, many more. They were the first 5 that came to mind, and actually thinking about it, they do absolutely resonate. And so, Amy, it's absolutely wonderful to see that this podcast is available and that you've created it. And I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's going to help lots and lots and lots of people worldwide. So what I would really like to start with is just a little bit about who you are and your journey to date. So I know you have focused on property, and if you can sort of explain where you've come from and your property experience.
Okay, so I started out in my property journey as an accidental landlord, and that was 14 years ago, and it manifested from moving house for the kids to get them a bigger garden. And we went to exchange to find out that the current house we were living in, the buyer hadn't even done his survey. He wasn't ready. I don't know how we managed to get to that point and go to the solicitors under the understanding that we were ready to exchange. So we didn't want to lose the house that we were going to go into. We absolutely love the space. We're still here now. That's 14 years later. And so we asked the solicitor what we could do, and she suggested that we did a let to buy scenario. So we actually kept our old house and became landlords overnight. Mm-hmm. And what that then afforded me to do sort of several years later was think about how I could start being a landlord on a professional basis, how I could turn that into being a property investor instead of being this accidental landlord, as so many people in the UK are. And that led me to getting some education. and finding out more about how to invest, because as you mentioned, I do like to do things thoroughly and properly. And so I took myself on a journey, and that journey has led to where I am today in so many ways. And it's brought together so many bits of my past into the present. And it's just been incredible what property has given me. And I didn't want this to be about property per se, this podcast. That's why it's very different, because the journey that I've been on has taken me through so many different routes. And it's been a mindset journey. It's been a personal journey. And that's where I feel I wanted to connect with more people around the world and bring together people from all different industries, all different routes and show them people their journeys and how they can help others, because I feel that where I am today is because of so many other people, and I couldn't thank all of them enough right now to have helped me to do what I've done. And I think it's really important. So I've been inspired, and now I seek to inspire others.
That's really interesting. I want to go back to the mindset piece. And is this something that you've always been interested in? Was there a trigger that sent you down the sort of mindset and the education path? What was it?
So there's several things. So I had 12 years out of work, and I went back to working for a new startup company. Mm-hmm. And I was working there for a couple of years, and I had to do quite a lot of mindset based stuff to get into a position where I am now much more comfortable in my own headspace. And whilst I'd been out at home, just raising the children for 12 years, the personal development movement was working, and I hadn't even heard of what great things were happening there. I went into Waterstones, and the shelves were just bursting with all sorts of books. And I love books, but I hadn't been sort of educating myself on a personal development side of things. Mm-hmm. So part of being or preparing myself to get into the mindset of a property investor and the resilience that was required to build a business and to work on myself, the books that I got recommended by people started coming through thick and fast, and they weren't about property. They were all about mindset. And the first book that I really recall that has really been pivotal for me was The Miracle Morning. Mm-hmm. And I like habits, I like structure. And that has been probably a book that has affected the most change around my life.
That's wonderful. And with regards to the podcast, how long have you been thinking about doing something like this? Because you do mentor people in terms of mindset already, don't you?
Yeah. So I've been podcasting for a year. I had the Property Vault podcast was the first podcast that came out, and that was a year ago now. And we put out 64 episodes, and it was the growth of those episodes and the journey that we both went on during those podcasts that really led me to believe that there was more than just the property. People wanted to hear the stories behind the individual journeys. Mm-hmm. And my favorite episodes from the particular podcasts were the ones where people showed the journey of where they were to where they are now, and the bridging of that gap of what they needed to get from those 2 points. Mm-hmm. So for me, the work that I do when I'm coaching and mentoring and seeing people's passions become reality and their dreams become reality, the way that they can change their lifestyles if they apply themselves, if they show that consistency, if they drive through the comfort zone into a stretch zone, then that for me is everything. And that's why the focusing on why you're doing what you're doing is everything. It's so important. And I just love that. It just gives me so much energy because I can see other people literally living their best possible versions of themselves. And that is so inspiring to see. And all I do is I listen, and I coach out from them what's already within, and I'm just empowering people to see what the beauty they have already, what tools are already they in their toolbox, and seeing that transition of them being able to enable their own journeys and not need me. That's when I see the magic happening.
And how does that make you feel?
Oh, it's everything. It makes me feel so the word is difficult because it's just so raw. It's so from the heart. It's just it's just everything. I just smile, and I just know that I've touched someone's life, and that they've got some kind of clarity which gives them the building foundations for them to take on and just do what they need to do. And I love it. That's a simple word. I love it. It's just, it fills up my happiness.
Which is just absolutely incredible. And would you say that some of it then reflects upon your own journey in terms of seeing where you've got to? Because I do recall having a conversation with you where you were saying, I never used to like standing up in front of people and talking, and I can't believe the podcast is in so many countries. And that's why I described, or one of the words I used to describe you was humble, because everything is, I didn't expect it, but all these wonderful things have happened. How does that translate to what you see with others when you help them through that journey?
I think it's really important that people recognize their own potential. And I think that I'd been living a life on autopilot, and people who know me know that I do a lot and I achieve a lot. But there was clearly something always bubbling under the surface that needed to be let out. And my husband's always said it. He's always been one of, my biggest supporter of that. I can do so much more, and I can affect so many people's lives. And I have been, and I've been doing that, and I've raised the children, the way that we wanted them to be raised. And for me, the change between knowing that I was existing to living, and moving from those two positions for me to taking control of my life and being much more self-aware and taking responsibility for understanding what was important to me and what routes I needed to follow, to then be able to be in a position where I can stand up in front of a group of people and share that journey and share what it was that I did, and that it was possible for others. And that journey, that I have to thank two particular people, Adrian Brown and Wendy. And what they did is they asked me to speak at their first network event. Mm-hmm. And that was very early in my property journey, but they saw something and they recognized that it would resonate with their audience. So I prepared a talk and I went along and I spoke at their event, and that was in May 2018. And I was super nervous, but I had so many people come up to me afterwards saying, I can't believe it's the first time you were talking. Because what I was sharing was just my journey. I was sharing what it was I had done, and it was a very personal one. So it was easy for me. That no one could say it was right or wrong. It was just this is what I've done, and this is how I've done it. And guys, I've made mistakes, and these are the top fails. So please don't follow this. Take some heed of this advice and go forth and do better. And people love that. They love that honesty. They love that sort of overwhelming honesty in a space where there is definitely sometimes a bit of a film of gorgeousness of Instagram life, which is not. It can be pretty brutal in property. So I shared some real truths there, and that resonated. And then that actually went on to speaking at other events, and I started to think, hold on, there's got to be more to this. I need to do more with this. I need to speak to more people. And that's when I met Dan. I had already met him a while ago, but that's when he said, would you like to come on board and work at the Property Vault, at the network event? And we've been doing that. We've been doing that since September 2018. And it was really important. And I thank Dan very much, because he definitely gave me a voice, or allowed my voice to be presented to a wider audience. And that's when the Property Vault podcast manifested, because we wanted to take what we were sharing on a small scale to a room of 50, 70 people to a worldwide audience. And initially we thought, okay, well, definitely the UK, we can get it across the UK. But then 82 countries later, we realized that, podcasting is a powerful medium, and people really enjoy plugging you into their ears and having that conversation, listening to that conversation, feeling like they're part of it. So for me, podcast is the most important medium, because you are speaking to somebody. They're not seeing you, they've just got you as an audio, so they can visualize what they need to, that translates to their own life. They can see how the story that they're listening to makes sense to them using their own images. And that's why I love storytelling, and that's why this podcast has come about, because I can now get as many different people from as many different audiences come in and speak to people directly to their ears, that they can then say, oh, I totally get that. That's what's happening to me. Oh, I can see how I could change things. I could see what made sense there, that would make sense to me, or that might not quite work for me, but I think I can see something, I can find my own solution. And if that evokes any type of change or any type of difference to them, help someone in some way become the better version of themselves, then that is mission accomplished.
I find that listening to podcasts, there's always a nugget of information, something new, something valuable you will get out of it, regardless of what the topic is, who's speaking. It's always a different viewpoint. And through this podcast, it's such a wide range of individuals across all walks of life. It's going to be really interesting, isn't it? And you've already done a number of podcasts, haven't you?
Yeah.
For this series. How have you found them so far?
They have been incredible. So I have already recorded, by the time that we're speaking now, I've got 14 people that I've spoken to, and they're not interviews, they're conversations. We talk about what it is they're doing, why they're doing it, and the reasons are different. There are some similarities, but the motivations, or the particular epiphanies, or the particular traumas, or the particular reasons why they're doing what they're doing are so different, because as humans we are all so different, we're so unique, and everybody has different set of experiences that leads them to where they are. And so everybody who I've spoken to so far has been incredible, in the sense that, yes, I need to get that message out, and I can't wait for everyone to be launched. And as soon as I record it, I just want to get it out there so people can hear it. I feel guilty holding on to it, but I just knew it's because I just want that story to be out there right now. But that's why the podcast idea is literally, at this point of recording, it was 3 weeks ago that I came up with the concept, and it's fast. It happens so quickly, in terms of, yes, this is right, this is me, this is everything that I've been put on this planet to do, and everything that has happened up to this point has given me the understanding of how to speak to people, how to deliver their message. And I just feel so strongly about that there's no turning back. This is out there now.
And what I absolutely love about this, so the Property Vault podcast, in less than a year, was in 82 countries, right? This idea, you started to communicate 3 weeks ago, and tell me about what's happened in those 3 weeks.
So I have reached out and posted on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and I have been inundated with people with their stories that they are willing to share. Some of the people I know, the majority of the people I don't. And I already had a list of people that I wanted to speak to and get involved on the podcast. But what's happened recently is that I have had so many people reach out who I don't know. And the difference there is that the stories are so much bigger than I was anticipating, in terms of there are areas that I hadn't even known existed, types of medicine, types of healing, types of spaces. Because I'm a well-read person. I read a lot, but there are so many different advances in technology. I've got people who are coming on to talk about prop tech, people who are talking about advances in, as I said, various different medicines. And then ways of living. I've got people who don't have a home. They travel across the world the whole year round, and they have an online business which allows them to do that. So they've got freedom is their highest value. I've got someone who reached out to me from America who wants to talk about an experience of PTSD, of being in the army. I've had people who want to share their experiences of teaching people or coaching people through trauma, and not big trauma, little trauma that you don't even know you have. So this is what fascinates me, that there are journeys of people who don't know me, who are willing to reach out. And when we sit down and we talk and we share that story, and that we finish recording, and they say, that was the most incredible interview, thank you so much. And because they weren't expecting it to be so empowering themselves. And I think it has reaffirmed that what they're doing and why they're doing it is the right thing for them, and vocalizing that and sharing that with an audience has been so powerful, because they realize that yes, their passion is the right passion. And some people share the fact that their why isn't that big. It doesn't need to be that big. It doesn't need to be this big, all like super legacy purpose that they're going to solve a solution for the planet. It can be quite personal, but they know that they're living their life the way they want to live it, and with purpose. And I think that that's something that I really feel strongly about, to not waste your days, not sort of, as I said before, you need to live, not exist, because my goodness, we only get one chance of this. And if you don't live life with bounce and exuberance, and I say it to people that I literally bounce out of bed, and anyone knows me knows that to be true. I'm literally like Tigger. I bounce out of bed and I am 100% until the end of the day, and then I'm straight down again. So that's the way I live, and that's the way I try and share what it is I do. And I'm such a big believer of sharing knowledge, and because if you don't have knowledge, it's just wasted. It's so wasted. And I think that it's a lifelong journey for me. I've always had a thirst for knowledge. I love educating myself. I love learning. I love seeing where that takes me and what that does. And it's a lifelong quest. It's never over. I'm going to be doing this forever.
And you can absolutely see how fired up you are about this, which is the most wonderful thing to see. Why now? Why did you decide to launch the Focus on Why podcast now?
Focusing on why is the foundation for everything that we do. For me, it is so important to understand what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, and never more so now, because we have an opportunity to change. We have an opportunity to change the way that life has been working. And there's been many things that haven't been working, doesn't work in terms of, is not helping the environment. It's not helping people on so many different levels. There's so many things that are brilliant. And I just want to make sure that we really take a good stock of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and being in more control, because I believe it's never too late to be what you might have been. And I believe that it's never too late to allow this world to be what it might have been in a way that we can heal it. we can start again, and we can change the way that things are run. And companies have opportunities to look at how their people are working within their organization. Are they really valuing and allowing those people to maximize their full potential? Are they really focused on the short-term shareholders, or are they thinking about, is it a legacy that they can leave behind? Is it something that is more important and has a greater goal than the immediate short-term returns?
That's massive. That's absolutely massive. And this is just the start, isn't it? And it's already picked up an amazing amount of traction. Where do you want this podcast to go?
So when I had the idea for this, it was on a basis that I wanted to get the message out to predominantly women, because I help a lot of women in my space become more financially literate, because that was something that I was unaware of before I started investing. I paid the bills, and yes, I knew that we had to save here and there for holidays in the future, and I've had a pension and things. But no, I had no idea about all of the other elements of being financially independent. So what started out as a mission for me over the last 4 years to bring together women and educate them, particularly about finances, and something that I've never enjoyed. It's not like, woohoo, it's the greatest subject in the world. No, not necessarily, but it's so important. And to understand the difference between assets and liabilities, and understanding that, what's comfortable now will make you uncomfortable later. So you have to get uncomfortable now and answer those questions that will make you comfortable in later life. To think about other things other than just, going out with friends. So I definitely switched up massively, and my thinking has totally transformed what I can do. And when I put together this podcast, I knew that the message was bigger than that even. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to create, but I just knew it had to be out there, and just get it out, get it started, and it will evolve. It will take on its form. And as with any kind of thing that has any kind of gravitas, it will take on a form that is needed by the people who want this, and they will own it. They will take on that responsibility for stepping forward and telling me what it is they want to hear, who they want to hear from. And I want people who feel they have a message that they want to deliver to approach me, to come to me and say, Amy, please, can I come on the podcast and share my story? And that's happening already. And I know that there will be some more and more people as this evolves, stepping up. So it's something that I believe in. I stepped up. I took center stage. I went out of my comfort zone. It was an uncomfortable space, but it was so important for me to do that. And taking myself out of into a stretch zone, into a place of creation, is the most powerful thing you can do. And it's where, I've said it before, it's where the magic happens. When you do something that you didn't believe you can do, and then you do it, that feeling is the best.
In terms of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, would you say you're still there, or have you adapted to your increased comfort zone?
I think that I have the ability to do more, to take it further, and I continue to push my limits out of that comfort zone every day. I've got one post-it note on my desk, which is my to-do list. And on that to-do list, it says, to do today, leave my comfort zone.
Love it.
and what that means for me is that I'm going to stretch myself. I'm going to discover new capabilities, new talents, get better at things that I already do, and just take that knowledge with time and increase my capacity to pass on learnings, to enable others to pass on learnings. And this, I want to leave as a legacy. This is something that's really important for me. It's been my desire to reach as many people as possible, to pass on this message. I remember a day back, it wasn't quite 4 years ago, but when I was reading the miracle morning, I said to my husband, I've got something I need to share. I don't know what it is yet, but it will be there, and it will be in front of a really big crowd. And he often comes back to me and says, are you ready for your stage of 10,000 people yet? And I said, not yet. It's not quite there yet, but it's coming. And I think this might be it. This is it.
Absolutely. From what I've seen, and following social media and just looking at some of the replies that you're receiving, it's just already flown. And to me, that sends a really, really important message that people are coming back to their why. People are evaluating what they've been doing, and unfortunately, the circumstances that we find ourselves in at the time of recording, being in lockdown and all of that stuff, means people do have more time to explore these things because everything is different, isn't it? And so, in terms of timing, it's just absolutely perfect in order to get the message out there, and then it will just roller coaster on the back of that, won't it?
I think you're right, and I think that there are two types of mindset: the people who are fixed, and those who've got the growth capacity. And everybody is perfectly capable of realigning their brain to be a growth mindset. It takes time. It's not easy. Everything I've done has taken time. Everything, as you said, I think you said consistent. Well, consistent, yes, but growing alongside that. So I haven't done something that I did before and I consistently repeated that. I've evolved and adapted. And I think that the difference at the moment between those who are really struggling with what's going on and those who are seeing the opportunities and not accepting it as a limiter are those who have had some time to work on their mindset. And that's where I would advocate really taking the time to read something or find something that will help you to become more accepting of you being in control and not allowing others to control you. Because once you release that from yourself, it's like literally setting yourself free. When you know that you take responsibility for every single action that you make, or every single decision that you make, and every single action that you take, when you know that's all down to you, that is as liberating as it gets. And with carpe diem in mind, seize the day, really think about what you can achieve, really think about what it is you want, and just remember to embrace life. It's affect change, keep moving forwards no matter what, because every that you make towards whatever you want, it may be really small, it may be one phone call, it may be one email that you send out, but if that's going to take you towards where you want to go and you keep going forward, then fantastic. And don't be afraid to fail. I've made so many mistakes, and I look back on them, and I keep a journal, and so I can't modify my memory because that's written down. I can't look back and go, oh yeah, I've always been this cool about these things. No, I have not. I found it really hard. I found lots of things really hard, and I write that down, and I'm brutally honest about how my days have been. And I look back and I'm like, okay, there's some real strength that's come from this. The journaling has made me stronger. It's made me really think about what it is I want to do. And I set myself goals and I go for them, and seeing them achieved. And even when I look back and I go, wow, is that all I said I could do? Okay, well, that's fine, because at the time, that's how I was feeling. And I look back and I'm so proud of who I've become along this journey. And I know the journey's still going, and I'm just excited.
That's just, for me, that's unusual, because there aren't many people who actually stop to look back and to see what has been achieved. And journaling does allow you to do that, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's so powerful, journaling. And that was something that I took from the Miracle Morning, in terms of it's allowed me to be more aware of the moments of each day. So, because they can get lost in the melee of a busy life, that those lovely, beautiful moments that, and if you just take those time to reflect on them and then record them, then I'm recording my sort of my wins of that day, my losses of that day, the learnings, those moments that have enriched my life. And this isn't just about a work or business. This is the moments in my personal life with the children, events or feelings that of those special times where you sort of seeing your children evolve, and I record that. And I think that having that consecutive, consistent journaling, and that being a sort of a irremovable habit is something that is non-negotiable. That is happening every day. But for me, it gives that lovely sense of peace that when I sit and I just write about the day and say what I'm grateful for, it really makes you take so much from what you've done and achieved in that moment. And I love it, because otherwise those special moments, even if I've just taken the dog for a walk, I'll come back and just say, okay, I just saw a tree with a knot in it. And I wrote a post about it on LinkedIn that, nature finds its own way, because this tree had sort of obviously grown and it been forced to grow in a direction that it didn't want to. And then it found its own way again. And it was, just observing those simple things about, yes, life throws all sorts of things at us, but we just keep going. And especially right now, when this podcast is launched, we are in the midst of lockdown. And that is something that nobody expected to happen. And I know that if I hadn't have spent the last 4 years putting my mind into a different space to receive the news that we're receiving on a daily basis, I would be really struggling. I would really be struggling. And I know that I have worked on that really hard. I still work on it really hard. It's not something that you're ever done with. It's a constant learning. And all I can do is I can help other people get into that security of being much more aware of your own person and how you can respond to external events, how you can deal with those external obstacles, and how it can be that you can provide solutions for yourself and not rely on others to do that for you. You can take more control.
Amy, what does it mean to you to have lots of different people sharing their experiences through the podcast?
Well, it wouldn't be that much of a podcast if it was just me talking all the time, because
you have a lot of information to share.
Okay. So let me explain what I'm planning to do. So with this podcast, I'm going to have really exciting, interesting people who are coming in and sharing their stories. Now, they are from all walks of life, all ages, and from all industries. And what I thought would be a really good idea is I let them in their space, in their podcast, in the episode that we record together, fly. And if I stopped and asked lots of questions and broke that moment of them sharing their journey, sharing their story, it would not be as fluid and as natural as we want it to be for the audience. So what I thought I would do is, instead of interrupting them during the podcast and sort of delving into something that I find interesting myself, that I would do a separate podcast after each one and just pick out a reflection, something where I can talk about something that they have, and then that would be my insight. So I still get to share something that I feel, but not that it would influence that particular podcast at that time. So let them be who they are and share their story. And then if anybody wants to hear my reflection on it, then they can listen to that afterwards or not. It's their choice.
Yeah, because people will take different things out of every conversation, won't they? and to have your reflection is what you've taken out of it, right?
Absolutely. And for me, again, I want to provoke thought. I want people to not just switch on the podcast, listen to it, go, oh, that's a nice story. I want them to take something away. I want them to think about how they could apply anything from that podcast into their own life. And if that means me then maybe potentially taking something, a key takeaway from that particular podcast that I've had or I've really resonated with, and then pursuing that a little bit more deeper, and perhaps giving some ideas of where people might be able to explore that further, some books that I've read that would help with that, then I feel that might have some value.
What would you like listeners to take away from this message? How can listeners get involved? What can they do, or what do they need to do in order to tell their story as well?
I think that I want people to think about why they're doing what they're doing, because it matters. It really matters. And what they're doing every day matters, because over time, the things that they're doing every day really make a difference over a period of time. And so I'm looking for people to take action, to make a change to their lives. If they need to, they may be perfectly happy where they are and they might just want to listen to stories. But if they're not happy, if they're in a position where they're in pain, that pain may be small, but it's niggling. And they may think, how can I switch this up? I don't know. Let me explore. Well, I'm thinking about the people who are in a position to take themselves out of that space and really push themselves to be a better version of themselves, be the best version of themselves. And that is work in progress. It's not going to happen overnight. It is going to take consistency. It is going to take effort. And if you're not required to do that, then, that's fine. But I believe that it is possible. And that if you are someone who likes to adopt new habits, or someone who is able to action and be positive about what they want to achieve, that if they apply new habits and stick to them, because it's all about that stickability. How many people say, oh, I'm going to get fit this year, they join the gym in January and then they haven't even been there in February? It's about sticking to it. And you have to really keep going. And the question about how do people get in contact, well, reach out, come on. I've got a Facebook group that is going to be connected to this podcast, and anybody can join and be part of a community. I've got the Instagram, be part of that community, connect with the people that are listening and fans of the podcast, and see what they get out of it, connect with them and collaborate with them and share your journeys online. And I think that if I can do anything, it's bringing together the people who are fans of this particular way of living, this particular way of becoming a better version of yourself. And for me, the knowledge is the foundation, because in life, there's no point accumulating knowledge if you're not going to take action. And I think it was Anton Chekhov who said, knowledge is of no value unless you put it into practice. So get out there and apply knowledge. And for me, I was like, oh my God, he's speaking to me. I need to apply my knowledge and get it out there. So, and I do, and I'm from Stratford-upon-Avon, so I do quote Shakespeare a lot. And for me, there's a play, two plays, one's Hamlet. And in there, Polonius says, to thine own self be true. And I'm being true to myself by pushing out this podcast, because it is the very essence of everything I do. And in As You Like It, Touchstone says, the fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool. And I'm on a constant quest for reminding myself that there is more to learn. There is more to the life than I already know. And there's a bit of a paradox there, that I don't even know what I don't know, which is, how will I ever learn what I don't know? Because I don't know that I don't know it. But it's just a case of just keep engaging with people, keep communicating, keep connecting. And that way my life will become more rich because of it.
Thank you so much. It's been absolutely wonderful to hear your insights into why you started this podcast. And for me, it has been truly enlightening. I know you already, that there is so much more I've got out of just this one conversation. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for turning the tables on me and for suggesting this, because I could have crafted a really long story that I wanted to share, and it would literally sound as though I was reading it off the page. And I think the energy that gets injected when somebody actually puts you on the spot and you're not prepared for that question changes the dynamic. And that's what I do to my guests. So it's fair. And I think that that's something that I feel is really important, that people are true to themselves. And for someone else to come to me and say, Amy, I know you're going to prepare this really long, probably beautifully written document that you're going to read out. And because I am a perfectionist, and in the terms that I like the written word to flow properly, I love reading, I love writing. And so, but it's not the same. It's not the same when you talk about your passion and it's unprepared, in the sense that it's off the cuff and I'm sharing it from the heart. It's very different than the written word can convey. So
and that's exactly why. So for people listening, the reason that, so this hasn't been curated in any sense or form, has it? And one of the reasons for it was when I had spoken to Amy about the podcast, the passion, the drive, the determination was just so raw. It was the most wonderful thing to see. And I thought, my view is that everyone should see that, because this is something that is absolutely here to stay. Amy is 1,000,000% behind it. And I know it's going to fly, and it just would have been a real shame not to see the true passion come through, which is often lost when it is curated. So that's why I'm sorry I have put you on the spot. I know that. But I'm really pleased in some regard that it has been done, because it's been wonderful to see you just you can tell you're so fired up about it. It's wonderful to see.
I think that's absolutely true. And I really thank you for the suggestion, because I have a passion. As I said, this idea came to me and it was one of those early morning fly out of the bed. Oh, I've got to get this written down before I forget it. And not only did I write it down, I wrote the entire concept, started pulling together the graphics for my logo, how it was going to, and I literally went backwards in terms of, or did everything the wrong way around when you're creating a whole thing. But I needed to get everything that I was visualizing onto paper, and it didn't take long at all. It was all there, and I spoke to my husband about it, and he was like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then I started speaking to a couple of friends and said, I've had this idea, what do you think? And yes, they were totally on board. And then announcing it this week formally on the social media, people have taken it upon themselves to spread the word. So I know it's going to really be important, and as a concept, that this is why I feel, when you have an idea, put it into creation, get it out there, because it doesn't matter if it doesn't fly or not, but it's important that you try. It's important that you go for it and that you follow your passion. This is my passion. And I know for sure that someone somewhere is going to listen to this and go, oh, that's amazing. Yes, please, I'll listen to this. And that's fine. I just need one person in my audience. And if they want to tell a friend and they want to tell a friend, that's how it's going to organically grow. And connect with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. And if you want to share your story, just give me a call.
Yeah, I'm an absolute firm believer of ripples. And sometimes you don't see the full impact until much, much later. But you start a ripple and you just don't know where it's going to end up.
No.
And by being able to positively change one person's life further down the line will be massive.
I hope so. I think that the difference often between those who achieve success, and I don't mean success in a financial way, I mean in whatever they choose to do. The difference is those people who really want to achieve their aim or their purpose, and those who don't, lies totally in the fact that the successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people aren't. And they keep going because they've got a plan, they've got a purpose, and they're focused on their why. And that for me is why this podcast is here. Thank you for listening to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlinson, and if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a 5-star iTunes review. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and become a member of the inspiring, uplifting, and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.